Today, I want to talk to you about one of the deepest and best spiritual practices that you can do every single day. And at first glance, this may not really seem like a spiritual practice. It may just seem like something everyone does. It may just seem like something that's a good thing to do. But in actuality, it's a really deep and profound and very transformative spiritual practice. And that spiritual practice is the art and the act of listening. And so when I say the art and the act of listening, what I mean is when you're talking to someone, or even if you're just in nature, or you're somewhere and there's sounds going on around you, to simply be there as presence, taking it all in, listening to it attentively, and really taking it in, not to respond to it or to react to it, but simply to be the space in which whatever sounds are occurring can be. It can just be. It can come in and flow into you and through you, and not so that you can do something with it and put something back out, but so that you can just be the space that's taking it all in. And so, a practical way that you can really think about this, and a practical way that you can really do this, obviously, every day we all have different conversations with different people. Most of us interact with various people every day. And the kind of ego mind default setting of speaking to people and having conversation with people is when they're talking, you're kind of half listening, but kind of your motive for listening is to respond. And so when the other person is speaking, oftentimes we tend to, in our minds, be formulating what response we want to give. We're already, consciously thinking about what we want to say back, how we want to respond, how we want to react, what we're going to say. And so, you're kind of taking in the information the other person's giving, but you're using that information to formulate the own thing that you want to say. This is just kind of something that we all do. And, I'm definitely guilty of this myself. So, for example, when I'm having a conversation with my wife, she might be, giving me some information. She might be telling me about her day, about things that happened. And, I oftentimes, not consciously, but I catch myself, hearing what she's saying, but, not intentionally, but thinking about what I want to say back to her. And what ends up happening is I don't fully remember everything she said. I don't, fully recognize, maybe the weight or the gravity of the things that she said. And so there's this really interesting disconnect that happens when you do that, because, you're not actually being there with that other person as they're speaking to you. And so, this practice of listening, of really deep and honest listening, is when that other person is speaking, to just be the presence there that's hearing them. And so every word that they say, really listen, you know, as much as you possibly can. Try to, you know, eliminate all thoughts of what you want to say back or what you think about what they're saying, and really just be that space for them to talk to and to speak to. So every word they say, every sentence they say, everything they tell you, really just listen. and don't put any judgments on it. Don't put any, thoughts into what you're going to say back, but really just listen. It's a really deep and beautiful practice that you can do every single day, because obviously, for most of us, we're going to have many interactions every day. And the reason why it's so beneficial and such a good thing for us to do is because, the ego mind tends to like to try to take over things and to, disregard others and to really focus on itself as the ego mind. And so, those habits of reacting and, what do I want to put out there? My point of view, or, how am I going to convince this other person that my point of view is correct? Things like that. But if we can really just become good listeners, become, people that when others speak to us, they're actually really heard. The things that they say to us, they're actually being heard and being felt. And, we're taking seriously what they're saying. It's, if you've ever talked to someone who's actually really listening to you, for maybe, for example, if, you're in therapy or something and you have a great therapist, or if you have a friend or someone that you've talked to that, is a good listener, regardless of, their spot on the spiritual, journey or whatever, even if they're not on that at all, if they're just really good at listening, when you talk to them, you can really feel that. They're not there trying to hear you so that they can say something back. They're really there just wanting to listen to you, wanting to hear you. And it's a beautiful thing. And you can really feel that. It's something that you can, you know, you can hear and notice within yourself. And so, um, the ego mind doesn't like to do this, right? The small I is very averse to this, but it's a very beautiful thing. And it's really similar to meditation in a lot of ways. As you meditate, as you focus on whatever your focal point is, whether it be the breath or a mantra or whatever, you're really allowing those thoughts and everything that clouds your mind to be, but you're not focusing on it. You're not buying into it. And so when you're listening, it's very similar, because you're hearing what the other person is saying and you're not buying into the ego mind's games of what do I want to say. And, it's kind of a power struggle the ego mind likes to do. But you're not saying, to yourself that I need to shut up and just, I need to hurt, I need to listen. And it's not a forceful thing. It's a very gentle thing. Whatever thoughts or whatever arises within you that, may try to bring you back to that place of saying what you want to say, it's allowing that to be and simply returning back to whatever that person is saying and really listening. And so, you might not necessarily think of listening in conversation or just in nature, if you're hearing sounds, or if you're somewhere with, like let's say you're at an auto mechanic store and there's drills and hammers and all kinds of crazy sounds going on. Really just be there and listen, and not have any judgment of, well, these sounds shouldn't be happening, these sounds are unpleasant, whatever it is. Just be there as the listener, as the spacious awareness where all sounds and all phenomena can really just flow into and through. There's no resistance. There's no thought of this shouldn't be. It's just you can be there as that spacious presence listening. And so I just wanted to, tell you about this. It's something that I often forget, but whenever I do remember to do this, it really helps me to come back into myself and to, really feel that peace and that presence within myself. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.